The state of Nevada is renowned for its mysterious dry air, deserts, and lengthy shadows that extend beyond memory. Yet some locations in Nevada are not simply a barren state. It's observing, waiting, or wise, making a call. We'll follow something back tonight. A bottomless hole with 3 pathways that's expanding annually to a town that departed from history and perhaps left her behind. And a door made of steel in the center of that might not even be a door. Are you prepared to settle in and take a deep breath and grip your pillow tightly, since the information you're going to hear is a marked The Devil's Throat mystery, the sinkhole, and the devil's throat that ought not to exist, and some locations are ripped apart at birth, opened by an invisible source, a flaw in the rules of the earth that keeps southern Nevada together. Near the former nuclear test sites, there is a hole in the earth known as the hell is not reached by Devil's Throat. However, those who have stood close to it say seems to. And the more deeply the more you examine it, the less sense it makes. Aerial surveys in the 1940s discovered a tiny desert dip to the north of Lake Mead. First disregarded the land was already harmed by the surrounding explosions. A surface crack was the hole did not remain, but it was nothing new. Tiny, but by the 1970s, it had grown to sinkhole that is around 20 feet broad and 30 feet deep now. It has expanded to over 200 feet in diameter and almost 100 feet in depth, with no water, no earthquake activity, and no collapse zones that are growing around it silently, regularly, and without anyone noticing why residents began referring to it as the. In the late 1980s, Devil's Throat wasn't due to its size, but also because of the way it feels like being close to it. Hikers and explorers of the desert who came to the location noted an abrupt increase in nauseous pressure in the ears, and their feet are humming. Radios picking up, cameras not working, transmissions that are unclear or static. When the geophysicist went to the throat in his journal, he wrote in 1994, "The closer I as my instruments drifted off, the more what my altimeter reads for their baselines and negative elevation where my compass indicated." He left the study sideways after every readout of his data was contaminated. Went to zero after a year of saving. Later, at the age of 42, he passed away from a stroke. 2013 saw a desert explorer who was only known online, while Rensfield shared a video from the Devil's Throat with only video and no dialogue. He brought a GoPro up to the rim and left a 30-foot low audio recorder into the audio sinkhole. You can hear the wind, then silence, and then something otherwise an erratic, low-frequency hum, mechanical, nearly like breathing, but breathing deeply as if in a room at the 212. There's a whisper, mark, but it's not in English, sound that isn't consistent with any natural pattern, after which Rensfield's audio ends. Uploaded the file to a discussion board 36 hours. His YouTube account was eventually removed. According to the forum admin, the file disappeared from Rensfield. Their server has not posted since the sinkhole is visible on satellite images expanding by a few inches annually. But it's never had a fence and no formal alerts, no geological research, only an indication that says hazardous area, do not approach. However, in 2018, 2 amateurs still, in order to rappel down, hikers used. They made it around 50 feet using climbing gear prior to one of them becoming frightened and saying he climbed after spotting wolves moving below him. Out trembling, the second man remained for 90. After a few more seconds, he came out. His watch indicated that 4 hours had. He believed he had been down there. Neither of them will say anything for 2 minutes. Nowadays, sinkholes typically occur in public places from 3 sources: the fault of water erosion lines or underground mining. However, none of those things apply to Devil's Throat. Caverns underneath it with no mining records, groundwater, which is situated in the center of a geologically dead zone, but it continues to expanding and odd things continue to occurring nearby. As a visitor in 2021 stated that she could hear her own voice calling her name as she got closer to the edge. Someone else claimed to have seen her own face mirrored in the sand underneath. Yet reflection, blinking sounds that weren't in sync, lights, time lapses, and technical malfunctions all in a complete circle in a remote location. The Devil's Neck has no bottom. There is no metaphor there that geologists haven't mapped it completely, but nobody has been able to look for the lowest place since. Instruments malfunction at altitudes below 70 feet. Regarding that area appears to push back, and it studies more the more we study it. We have a hole that consumes acoustic signals, and perhaps even memory itself. But it's not Nevada's sole location where quiet possesses a form where the air slants back at. Being by yourself doesn't mean you're not being. The disappearance of Ionic Town heard about Ionic, a disappearing village where silence is not a blank space. There are many ghost towns in Nevada, most of which are just destroys artifacts of gold, silver, and breach pledges. Although some people believe they remain alive and are either waiting or listening. If one is hiding in a small location, something that nobody has managed to describe. This as Ione's narrative. Mining town with authentic documentation, and Ione's missing history was founded in by 1864. There were more than 600 people living there. A newspaper, a courthouse, and saloons for a short time. It was the county seat of NY County. Then an odd incident occurred. According to official government documents, merely shows up on a regular basis till after 1872. There was no census or tax record pertaining to no property records for 12. It disappears from the state after several years. Records as though the town and its residents were removed in 1884. Ionic reappears 150 fewer structures per person smaller town. Yet there's no reason why. What transpired between no one recorded a catastrophe, but nothing is mentioned of floods, starvation, or flames, not even in private correspondence or newspaper snippets, merely a silent pause, similar to the town hit play again after pressing pause. Locals don't discuss it. Most people won't even check out the wreckage right now. And those who do cite a lingering issue from 1971. Two students attending the University of Nevada decided to look into Ionic. Brought a recording recorder, notes, and their objective was to record acoustic strange reports of echo distortion and voice lag close to mines that have been abandoned towns. They camped close to the former post. According to their logs, the office ruins. It was peaceful on the first night, but on the second, at 2:13 a.m. that night, one of them woke up to children's laughter, initially far away. Then, he stepped just behind the tent wall. His companion was gone for 6 hours outside. The missing pupil was eventually located, sleeping while sitting up straight inside the tent but without shoes and with muck on his hands. He woke up with no recollection of no memory of leaving the previous night. He was unhurt, but he kept saying the same thing word. It was waiting, not quiet. Their tape recorder continued to operate in typical wind playback. The sound of the tent zipper, followed by a pause, and the voice begins responding to inquiries on the tape, before they are questioned, reverberating backwards, and a mumble at the end as to why. Have you remained here over the years? Strange acoustics have been noted by others in Ionic. Yells that never return, footsteps that come before the individual. Does wind that shifts direction exist? Voices in the middle of sentences that precisely repeat. After 7 seconds, a sound engineer who brought a digital reverb when they came in 1996. Censor, and he reported variations and unable to describe a dropout zone in front of. His final report is ruined by the courthouse. Just read the quiet isn't passive. He never returned since it's structured. Some people think I just sit on a natural aberration in sound and a subterranean structure that distorts other people's vibrations. Claim that it's desert mentality or perhaps a general recommendation. But the land is geologically uninteresting and dry and steady. Thus why are individuals still going missing in sound? A photographer asserted her voice in 2015. Her humming was caught on tape before she pressed the record button. Another guest stated he heard a youngster shout, "You're not supposed to be present," right before he fainted. He was missing 3 miles when he woke up. Ionic lacked security and barriers for hours. Only broken glass and sand wood. But it seems preserved in some way. A memory that is unwilling to recall the records that were missing, the voices. This town's time gaps didn't. For 12 years, it was folded, and perhaps what transpires in a town when sound bends as silence falls and time passes. Returns the listen, and what transpires with those who remain long enough to listen to what. Ionic isn't the one stating this, but Nevada's sole location that distorts. What's actually happening farther down in the desert? there's a location much more difficult to locate, a location without a path or address. And something is waiting beneath the steel object. Door in the center of Desert Dry Lake's blue access door. The desert's blue entrance door is empty. Number of dry lakes. 4 doors are constructed to keep items. Some are designed to keep people out. However, occasionally there's a door that appears to be unrelated to anything. Frame with a flat, blue surface and no hinges. That's what it is in the middle of nowhere. A number of digital photographers found, in the midst of the Nevada desert in 2017, a metallic square with no features implanted in. The Desert Dry Lake's dried lake bed number 4. There are no roots to it. Satellite construction records, and by 2020 had already begun and been shifted. Utilizing satellite imagery in June 2017 on a secret forum for GM mapping, were monitoring abnormalities in shadows across dry. The Nellis Range lake beds are a restricted region next to one of them. Region 51 saw an odd shape that was precisely square object that is around 10 feet deep blue in tint that is somewhat set into the White Lake's fractured floor over the next. After 6 months, a number of members noticed subtle. Its geographic changes are never more than a few meters, yet sufficient to indicate no formal movement or manipulation. There were no construction permits, according to reports, and no reasoned justification for why it. Did anyone think it was a vent or hatch a sensor array for others? But none of that clarified what transpired next in early. In 2020, a quartet of amateur explorers made the decision to locate the entryway on. They parked outside the boundary with their foot zone and trekked more than 14 kilometers through the desert by dusk. They were close to the ranges. The age of one of them, Cole Harper 28, proceeded by himself using a drone. The others stood watch at the base camp. Cole's radio cut off at 9:16 p.m. His final words, mid-sentence, "It's not flush, something's underneath that static." A search crew arrived at the final 36 hours after the known location. There is no indication of Cole, only has his satellite phone and no drone discovered undamaged more than 2 kilometers away. Investigators were able to get multiple videos. All of the files from the device were corrupted, with the exception of the 42 clip. It displays a Cole's hand for a few seconds, coming into contact with a shiny metal surface. Although the last frame is fuzzy, if you carefully, upon closer inspection, a reflection that is not of the sky of something, not Cole. The bizarre thing about standing behind him about the blue door was its absence of background with no corrosion, bolts, or tire tracks. The perfect impossible shape is close by. Engineer who looked at the picture stated in an anonymous manner, "That's not commercial. Material appears to have been poured rather than produced, as though it had been formed rather than constructed." An additional satellite analyst highlighted a terrifying feature on clarity days. The object didn't absorb any light. Found a reflectivity of 0.01, formerly more sinister than a black hole in. Infrared pictures with visual range didn't assist in making the square heat invisible. Mapping as if it weren't composed of any material or was non-existent. Cole. There are others associated to Harper, a retired person to the blue door in 2021. Ranger wrote a blog article that has since been removed, asserting that he had seen the item years before. However, it was in a different setting in 1989. Place where he talked about passing a structure that resembles a door and is encased in salt flat upon his return with 48 co-workers. After a few hours, another hiker arrived. 2022 captured a long-distance image of. The door was visible in the same spot, but was it a set of holes or anything else? Placed around it in a spiral pattern using GPS data. His phone malfunctioned for 8 minutes. He had traveled when the signal came back. 7 miles east and no recollection of walking. The U.S. administration has never made any remarks regarding Desert Dry Lake Nora. However, has a lengthy record of classified operations. A portion of the Nellis training and test range. It is employed in electronic combat, unmapped drills and simulations. But no, infrastructure has always been recorded, specifically in that area, and even military. Pilots have documented instances of data dropout when flying over it. No known way to get in. No tunnel, no bunker, and no metal door to be present. But each few. It waits for months, or worse, it moves. Someone else will locate it in 3 other locations. expanding hole that is not consistent with geology. A ghost village where reality is broken by silence, and a lake with a single steel door that never had water at every location buried in official stillness, each linked by the deformation of memory duration of the rules we presume Nevada doesn't simply conceal. It always works. It transforms certain riddles into secrets. Echo others disappear. But the majority, the ones that open, are the deadly ones. Which mystery is hidden when no one is looking? What bothered you the most was the throat. Tell us in the town or at the door. Feedback and let us know which state should. We continue our exploration because certain locations have. Others have a noteworthy reputation for secrecy. Mystery.